Zenith, Deadbeard's Curse, and Butter. This is staying in.
I'm going to be honest, because it hasn't been that long since we last saw each other, I've not really got much to say.
I'm kind of bored of you guys, really.
Yeah.
So we done?
I
mean, Pete hasn't shown up again.
No, bless him. He's unwell. I send all our love to Peter and wish him well. I think I've got over hay fever now for the year. My hay fever is spring related, so I think we're in the throes of spring.
So do you develop like a natural vaccine within yourself, like
Careful,
at the start
Dan.
of the year, and then it just doesn't hit you?
Careful, Dan. Let's not talk about natural vaccines.
Slippery slope.
It's the bleach that Chris injects once a year. Sorts itself out. I'd just like at this point to say that at no point should you take any advice ever, medical or otherwise,
of any kind from us.
Any kind from us.
So it's because it's tree pollen, I think, in the spring, and I take a spoonful of local honey every day.
Is it to just so you can like be one with the trees type thing?
I love to be one with the trees, but apparently, Dan, I've not looked into the science behind it, but if you have like honey local to your area that's obviously been made by bees from that area that have been pollinating local flowers, it helps you create something of a resistance
Now,
to the bombardment of pollen.
As someone who procured hay fever late in life, and also someone who doesn't like honey, hay fever has been a strange thing to get used to. I remember when I first got it, and it was so bad I had to do a COVID test because the symptoms were just the same, and but then it just turned out to just be an awful allergic reaction to pretty flowers. Probably it's probably something like yours, Chris. It's probably boring like grass or.
Yeah.
I lived next door to someone once who was so allergic to grass they couldn't even cut the lawn. Now, in my mind, it sounded like a convenient excuse.
Yeah.
But
well, particularly if it's your law.
Yeah. Sorry, can't cut it anymore.
Lest we forget. My wife, one of the first things she told me when I met her was that she's allergic to cheap tartar sauce.
Well, okay,
specifically cheap.
So your first date was at a fish and chip shop, wasn't it? So
I love the idea of like it's good tartar sauce but she doesn't know if it's good and she's tried it and she hasn't had an allergic reaction.
Oh yeah. Well, in our house I make the tartar sauce from scratch.
We have to.
Yeah, well, of course.
So I take it that they've never pinned down what the exact thing within the cheap.
Is it specific to supermarkets?
Yeah.
Is she just allergic to Tesco?
If they slapped a tenner on it, instantaneously fine.
Yeah,
fine. So she's allergic.
You really can taste the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she's allergic to the sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah,
basically.
so there must be some kind of like cheap ingredient in there that cuts the corners. It gives you that sense of tartar, but
I'm not allergic to anything else. Just cheap tartar sauce.
I think so. Yeah.
You should do what my parents did to me and my sister when we were young, because we used to complain about the cheap cereal that my mum would get because we said it didn't taste very nice, and she was like adamant that it just tastes exactly the same. You just see the cheap box and you say you don't like it. So she bought she'd bought like a Kellogg's flavoured cornflakes, whatever, and then another time she'd taken the bag of the cheap cereal, put it in the Kellogg's box and given it to us. And me and my sister tasted it and we went, immediately, you've switched the boxes here. We know the difference here. This isn't fake. We've known this. That's what you need to do, Chris. You need to take some really, really cheap stuff, decant it into an expensive jar that looks like artisan.
Yeah.
And then present it to her and see if she reacts.
Yeah.
The only one problem with that is one is a one is very much an opinion based reaction to it, and the second one, which is a possibility, is a severe allergic reaction.
Well,
to
I think it's probably
Well,
important.
you say you've got a nut allergy.
Have you tried
It's probably
these
important
nuts?
to understand the scale of the allergy here. If it's just kind of a slightly scratchy throat, that's one thing. If it's a full-blown anaphylactic shock, then yeah, maybe we don't take that risk.
Yeah. Yeah, I look forward to the grass sandwich I would get in retribution.
The tree sandwich, Chris. Come on.
Tree sandwich, yeah. Also, it's quite barky. I remember going to school with a kid who had to go to hospital because he ate a daffodil sandwich. Just made himself a daffodil sandwich.
And he had to go to hospital.
Yeah, to get his stomach pumped.
Does pollen work like that?
I don't
That's
know.
nice.
Do you know what? Ever since then, though, you know, sometimes when you go to like certain restaurants and they may, as a fancy form, as a fancy form of presentation, you get little edible flower petals and stuff on it.
Yeah.
I've never touched those.
Because of this one boy.
No.
It's like one of those public information films from when you were a kid. There was this one boy who ate a daffodil sandwich.
It's a guy sat there in a Michelin-starred restaurant pointing at his plate with decorative flowers saying, "Not for me."
What's
Having
this?
flashbacks to that
What's
time
this?
in school that he ate a daffodil sandwich.
I don't care if you've used tweezers to put it on there. Can you take it off? Yeah, no. I just worry it might. You don't know if it's going to set off my hay fever. Well, I could probably check, but yeah.
Just give it a sniff.
Yeah, I know, but it's very difficult to do that discreetly if you're in that kind of setting, isn't it? Really.
Pop a Claritin and then give it a good sniff. You'll be all right. For the first time ever, I have bought my son a Pokemon game.
Wow. I've not done that, so
Let me tell you a story. I've been trying to educate my son in the ways of Mario, okay? Because two big sort of Mario things have happened recently. The first big thing, and they're kind of adjacent, is the brand new Super Mario movie has come out. Super Mario Galaxy, the movie, or whatever it's called. And alongside that has come a big McDonald's promotion, right? And it's been the Easter holidays. My son's been off a lot, which means there is more McDonald's in his life than usual. So he's been packing a lot of these McDonald's toys, right? First one he got was a Birdo. That didn't go down very well. And the second one he got was Fire Mario. And my son was just like, "What's Fire Mario?" Well, I said, well, if you played a different game other than Mario Kart or watched the films, you'd understand that when Mario eats a fire flower, good job he's not got hay fever, he turns into Fire Mario and he can fire fireballs out. So then he was like, "Oh, I'd like to actually play the games." And because his only interaction with Mario has only ever been through Mario Kart, so he has no idea about who these characters are, and more importantly, how they interact with each other. So he didn't even know Bowser was the big bad guy.
Oh my gosh.
Of Mario. He just assumed it was just a dragon, weird shell type creature. So I said to him, I said, "Look, well, why don't we just play some of the games, right? And then you'll understand what's going on in this world." And I was trying to think of, firstly, the most economical way of introducing Mario to him, and B, the best game that is going to present the easiest gateway into Mario and what it is. So immediately my mind went to Mario 64, right?
Yeah. Oh.
And I was like, "Oh, how do you play Super Mario 64 these days, right?" Impossible. It's not if you've got Nintendo Online. So I bought Nintendo Online and started showing Hugo some Super Mario 64. Loved it because especially like the first level, he can just run around, just do what he wants, interact with the world. He doesn't have to do anything. It's just an open world essentially that he can play around. But while we were discovering Super Mario 64, I came across what has actually been the genuine hit, which has been Pokemon Snap from 1999.
Pokemon Snap.
Yeah.
Okay.
What happens in Pokemon Snap is it's an on rails game, right? So you don't move around. You're just on this little train on an island, and you go from point A to point B. And while you're doing that, Pokemon stuff happens around you.
I swear we've spoken about this.
Do you think have we?
I think so. Pete, I think, has spoken about this because we were talking about our loves of photography games or games in which you can take photos in them. But it may not have been Pokemon Snap, but there was a few like this. But the fact that you're on rails is great, particularly for a child.
So that's great for Hugo. So I just like plonk him down, get him started up at the level, and then he just moves the camera where he wants to and takes pictures of Pokemon. And then depending on how well they're in frame, if they're in shot, if they're doing anything different, you get a score that is relative to that. But otherwise, really the only thing that you're doing is taking photos of Pokemon. And he absolutely loves it. But it looks like absolute garbage, right? When you start putting stuff from an N64 on a big 50-inch LCD TV, it don't look so good, right? So
you see the flaws.
So I bought him new Pokemon Snap.
And when you say new, when did this come out?
Well, that's the name of the game. It's called New Pokemon Snap.
Oh, okay. So like New Super Mario Brothers.
I've always admired Nintendo's title options.
It came out in 2021.
Okay.
So it's not that new.
It's not that new. We are yet to play it. I have just acquired it. I've just bought it for him. But we are the world of Pokemon is still burgeoning within him.
Can I ask a question to both of you as parents?
No. Okay, go.
Just hearing Sam talking about Nintendo there and that wave of nostalgia, like what will be or what has been the world that you've been the most excited about introducing to or having introduced to your children? Like whether it be the world of Mario, for example, more exciting than our current world, let's say. Like, I'm talking about a fictive world here. Whether it be from games, novels, films, etc.
I think for me, like my son has really loved Mario, and similar to you, Chris, I didn't have any Nintendo console until the Wii, and so I played Super Mario Galaxy at that point. I'd never really played Mario Kart before then, so I didn't like my childhood is not wrapped up in Mario. I was more Sonic and that kind of stuff. So I did go. I've not really played much Sonic with him, but we have been to see the Sonic movies and that kind of stuff, and that's all been good. I think the one thing I always wanted to get him to enjoy was kind of like those like classic Disney films. Like I tried so many times to get him to watch like The Lion King, just did not work. So that never worked, and so the next one is Tolkien.
Oh.
That's the one. So we've already been reading
The Silmarillion?
Harry Potter together.
Oh, okay.
No, not Silmarillion. So we've been reading Harry Potter. We've been reading Harry Potter together. So the next step will be to read The Hobbit together. Because The Hobbit I think is probably not quite there yet, but soon we can do that. Lord of the Rings is quite a way down the line. He's only 8, so kind of that's a good few years away. But they're the ones that I am looking forward to, and he loves reading, so hopefully I'm onto a winner with that. And obviously we're in a lucky position now that we now have the books, but then we can also show the films as well. So we have that visual aspect, which when we were young, we didn't have. We just had the books, which is amazing as it was. We obviously had the animated film for those kind of things, but we have a lot of these adaptations now. We can also lead into and expand on those worlds and stuff. I might not be showing him Rings of Power anytime soon, but we'll get there eventually.
Eventually. That's lovely.
For me, it's probably, I think Roald Dahl was always a big part of my life growing up, and like the impact that those books had on me. We kind of dabbled in some of them from time to time. Like we sort of started Fantastic Mr. Fox a few times, and yeah, it's only when you start reading those books to a child that you realise, oh my, and you do some on-the-fly editing of Roald Dahl's work.
Yeah. I remember Revolting Rhymes quite vividly when I was younger.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just been sort of desperate for him to have the same interests that I did or I do now. So really encouraging play through board games, and then
Twilight Imperium,
Dune, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Hugo's first book was Dune, so started right at the top.
My first Dune.
Yeah,
my first Dune.
Yeah,
and
that's not my sandworm.
But it's been things. I know this sounds sort of like I'm dodging the question a bit hoity-toity, but there's not been. And like, I don't think there was really much. I know I've said this before in terms of like, I'm just not a big franchisee sort of person. There's never been a big sort of character or thing in my life that's had an effect in that way.
But I think also, like, I think back to when I was young and the games I was playing. I think about the likes of I was on the Sega playing Sonic the Hedgehog, Echo the Dolphin, those kind of things. It's a bit difficult for me to kind of bring those back to the table now because games have moved on so much. And like, I think one of the reasons Mario is the one that we gravitate towards now is you look at it was always Mario and Sonic. Like when we were growing up, those were the two. Only one of those has successfully navigated into modern day gaming. Sonic hasn't. Sonic tried many times to be 3D gaming and just failed. And I gave it so many tries. I got through Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast, where it basically the game plays itself. And I've played so many 3D Sonic games, and it has come back to that 2D aspect. Which there are some great 2D games, like Sonic Mania was brilliant. Like there are some really good 2D modern Sonic games, but gaming and those kind of visual styles have moved on so much that for me to come back and say, here, play Sonic 1, Toby can enjoy, but my son can enjoy, but he's going to maybe enjoy me playing it a bit more than kind of him playing himself, because he wants to play Minecraft.
Yeah.
Like he wants to play the things that actually gaming has moved on a lot. It's not a case that, oh, he just wants to play the new stuff. Like you look at something like Minecraft now, that and the scale of what he can do in that compared to Sonic, as much as I love Sonic, as much as I love those old games, it's just difficult to kind of bring those back to the table now. So that's why something like Mario has steadily made those leaps and steps forward. And now still something like Super Mario Wonder, like even now is still pushing those boundaries while still in that 2D environment. And then you got things like Super Mario Odyssey, which was fantastic. And that was like one of the first proper big Mario games he played. He loved like your Mario parties, he loved your Mario Kart and all that stuff. It's those kind of things that Nintendo has done so well. So there's no point where I can kind of go, oh no, don't play that. Play this other thing, because at the end of the day, Mario's better. And I want him to play the thing that he really enjoys and really good fun. And that's why I think maybe as he gets older and we move into kind of, I think about the games I played when the PlayStation came along and maybe into like PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, we start getting to Naughty Dog territory, that kind of thing. He's played a little bit of Crash Bandicoot, but not a lot of that. But as he gets older and he can play older games, he plays your Uncharted and stuff like that. That's when the games that I get passionate about, I can then introduce him to and try and do that. Because as the same with you, Sam, like I'm desperate for him to love the things that I love, so I can share those things with him, and we can experience them and enjoy them together again. And so I'm looking forward to future years where he plays some of those games that I can go back to and say, look, this is amazing. Let's try this together and that kind of thing.
One of the things I've had actually the most success with recently in terms of introducing him to new things and new types of play and games and stuff is playing lots of choose your own adventure games.
Oh, I love those as a kid. Love those.
And there's been 2 different choose your own adventure books that I've been playing with him, and they both sort of tackle the choose your own adventure genre in very, very different ways. One of them's a series called My First Adventure, and if you scroll back enough onto Instagram, you'll see that we featured one of those books before. We've been playing one called Discovering Atlantis, and the story is that you're in a submarine and you are going down into the depths to find the treasure of Atlantis. But whilst you're in the depths of Atlantis, you get attacked by a kraken, right? But how the choose your own adventure-ness of it works is what you are trying to do is to, at each big sort of decision marker, you are trying to equip your submarine with something that will help it further down on the adventure. Because if you don't do that, you will get a leak. And basically, if you get to the end of the game and you have 1 leak or more, you don't get to collect the treasure of Atlantis. So it's a choose your own adventure game, but with a very, very definitive path of how to basically succeed. It's not like other games, and an example of which I'll get onto very shortly. It's not like one of many other games where there are multiple endings and the decisions are a bit more open-ended. With My First Adventure, you are collecting items to help you in the further into the end game, and really there is only 1 or 2 definitive paths through, and it's got quite a nice system that it comes in this robust ring binder, and in each corner it has these dials, and these are the dials that you set when you find certain objects or when you spring a leak. You set the dials to represent those objects that you find, and the choices that you make to get the things are really nice and organic as well. There's so very early on, for example, there is a bit where you've just left the harbour in your submarine. Do you decide to go down to the depths, or do you decide to stick to the shore, basically the shoreline? If you decide to go down to the depths, you see some lovely pretty fishes, and that's it. However, if you decide to go along the shoreline, you see a crab cutting something up with its pincers. And because you've seen that crab, you decide to upgrade your submarine with pincers, because you never know when you might need them. And then later on down in the story, you come across a overgrown seaweed forest. If you don't have the pincers, you get lost, you get tangled up, you spring a leak. But because you got the pincers from earlier on, you know how to tackle that forest. And most of this My First Adventure book follows that pattern, and it really is a great way to introduce what these kind of books are to kids. I think the one downside to it is the fact that it does have a very, very definitive path, and once you kind of figured out that, or once you kind of missed your chance to pick up a certain bit of equipment, I find that there is a huge potential for upset and wanting to change decisions and wanting to try and sort of almost min-max the experience in order to find the critical path, because that's where the enjoyment is, rather than in the actual discovery. It becomes more of a game than to actually understand what gets what, and then this will get that, and then when I get this to do that, to then get the treasure.
Yeah, and it relies on kind of the short attention span of young children. Kind of that's why it's obviously structured the way that it is. Like, I've read these in the past, and it is like, that's just, I remember being a child and like loving those like puzzle dungeon books or puzzle island, those kind of things where you have that proper choose your own adventure, turn to page 33.
Yeah.
Scrap to the foot, or things like Asterisk and Obelix, those kind of games where you got proper dice and pencil and all those kind of things. My 8-year-old is starting to look at some of those kind of like the more puzzle dungeon, puzzle island, those kind of things that are similar to what I would have read when I was young, what I remember reading when I was younger, because he is really into his reading, and that has come in part from these My First Adventure books. So I think the main one that he read was around the kind of the fantasy one. Kind of, I think you've got an elf, a fairy, and something else as they try and battle a dragon or something like that, and they have to get through without being injured or something. And if they've got too many injuries towards the end, then they don't beat the dragon or something like that. So, but again, it's really small and condensed, but it means it's really easy for that age range to pick up and understand. And with those dials, it's a very clear understanding of, I now have this item because I've selected it physically using this thing. And that's a really useful way of doing it, and understanding then the repercussions of the choices that they have made. And it's never a bad ending. It may not be the best ending, but like, it's then as the child gets older, you can then navigate and graduate to slightly more advanced versions of that allow, they're a bit more subtle.
So yeah, I think so. I can recommend you something that is a bit more like that, and has a bit of a USP to it. But the other game, choose your own adventure game, that we've been playing is a game called Deadbeard's Curse, and this is from a company called Peasoup, and it's what's called a smart book. I think this is really cool and a really great idea, and I think it actually does two really important things. I think first off, the guy who came up with the idea, Soren Jonsson, came up with the idea because he wanted to get his kids into reading, but wasn't impressed by what was out there in the market, so came up with the idea for these books, and I think that's a really admirable place to start, because
Absolutely,
that is the aim of the books. It is not. It is to get kids reading, and it uses a smart element to do that. But the smart sort of app aspect to it is not. There is nothing cynical. There is nothing corporate about that function to it. It just is a way of interacting with the book and a way of increasing the engagement. Because I don't know if you found this as well, Dan, there came a point where, especially when I was reading things like Fantastic Mr. Fox with Hugo, that he'd only ever be interested in the page if it had an illustration from Quentin Blake on it, because he was so used to interacting with books where it be pictures and words combined, that moving into a world where it is just words, he really struggled with, because there wasn't that visual stimulus to go along.
Yeah, I get that
with the words. And the other thing that I think that these books do really, really well is actually start bringing in some computer literacy and some ways of engaging with smartphones and how to actually operate them and use them. And I think that's a valuable skill as well. So how the books work, how the Choose Your Own Adventure games books work, is they're very much what I would call a very, very traditional Choose Your Own Adventure. You read a paragraph, you either make a choice, or it tells you to turn to a specific page. And it's very, very open-ended. You could do lots and lots of things in the book, and there are lots of different endings depending on the choices that you make. There is no right or wrong, like how it feels in My First Adventure. The series from Peasoup is very much about discovery and choices and the story molding around those choices that you make. So as I said, we've been playing one called Deadbeard's Curse, and it's where you inherit a ship called the Sea Sausage, and then when you get on board the ship, your grandfather Deadbeard joins you as a ghost to then sail around the southern seas, doing lots of different things in the story. So there is a lot more reading, there is a lot more pages, there is a lot more of an interaction in terms of choices in this book. But the smart element, I think, is really, really clever. So what it does is it basically uses augmented reality and an app to bring certain elements of the book to life. So there are certain pages on the book that when you scan them with a phone, they will do something that that represents things that are happening in the book. So, for example, when you first inherit the sea sausage, it needs repairing. So you scan the page of the phone, and then you've got to use your fingers to block the holes of the ship
that's cool.
and to repair it. And then when you've repaired it, you then have to design your own pirate flag. So then you use the phone to design your own pirate flag. And then that pirate flag appears in the virtual version of the game. And then when you hire your crew in a very, very traditional choose your own adventure style way, as in, like, do you want to talk to the pirates? Do you want to avoid them? Do you want to go and speak to the cook instead? All that kind of stuff. You then finally go out to explore the southern seas. And then you're sent back to the phone again. And then that is a free roaming ship that goes round this map that you move as a player, and you decide which island you want to go to next. And depending on which island you choose to visit via this interactive map, it will say, right, turn to page 74. Here's what's happening on this island, and then you have a moment of story that happens in there. There's also ship battles that you do, which is a very, very simple dice rolling game. The app also tracks things like how much money you have, which has an impact on stuff that you can do with the book. It also tracks where you are up to in the story. So if you forget and you don't know where, you can just come back on the app and it says, right, go to this page. Or if you need to save it, it saves everything within this app. There's no microtransactions. There's no signing up for anything. You just download the app and it just supports the story. And that is it. It's just there to add this this interactive gloss to this experience. And I think more importantly for me and for where my child is at the moment is to really get them into reading. Let's get them into the next bit, into the story. Like, the app is not doing any reading for them. It's not really providing any of the quote unquote story elements. It's just an added element to help bring this story to life. The important stuff still remains in the book and still remains what I am sharing with them. Mm-hmm. And that is the richness of the experience. The app is just something that builds on it and provides a varied way of entering into the world. And we've really been, when you come home and the first thing is saying, oh, can we read this book again? It's not, can we play with the app? Can we play these games? It's, oh, can we read this book?
Yeah. Then
you know that it's doing a really powerful thing.
There's an understanding that that's the core focus of it. It's just enhanced by this other element that he enjoys, but he understands the fun is coming from the book, not from the app.
Yeah.
And how big are these books in terms of story, like lengthwise?
I mean, we've done a couple of sessions, and I'd say we still feels like we're only at the start of the adventure. Really, the books themselves are quite substantial in size, and they're hardback. I'd say they're the sort of same size as like a Dandy or Beano annual.
Shout out.
Okay.
And about as thick as like the first Harry Potter novel. So they're quite substantial
Oh yeah.
books. And there's 4 of them that are out. There's Gloom Dragon, The Wonder Sword, Deadbeard's Curse, and I think Outer Town is a new one that's coming out. And you can actually, if you go onto the Peasoup website, you can actually do a demo. You can try out the book for free, which is quite cool. But yeah, I think I've sort of been playing them, and I think the idea is probably that the audience is a little bit older than my son, but I think he really enjoys it. And if you've got kids and they've got an iPad of their own, or maybe they have an hour a day to play on an iPad or whatever, or a phone, then this definitely is an amazing way to kind of bring some tactility to that experience.
I've also been reading a book. That's
Good.
probably not
What a
one.
nerd.
Probably not one you're gonna read to your children anytime soon. This is a book called Butter.
Okay, I've heard about this.
Yeah,
This is the one. This is the yellow one with the cow on the cover.
yeah.
I have not heard about this book.
Oh, Dan, like this is a book that would be right at home on your toilet bookshelf.
Oh, I do like the toilet
And
bookshelf.
for listeners, that's not to denigrate this book. Dan just happens to have a library in his
No.
downstairs loo. It feels like a kind of book.
Which also oversells the library somewhat to call it a library.
Yeah, that's true. It's not as if you can book stuff out. It's not like an online
Yeah,
catalogue.
I don't have a leather armchair in there.
But I walk past this book so many times, and I've spoken about it before. I do judge a book by its cover. And cards on the table, this is not the book I thought it would be. It's better. And
It's butter.
exactly. And I read the blurb, which for me sounded really interesting, where you've got so this is a fictional story, but based on a real life murder event, essentially. And it's the story of a young journalist called Rika Mashida, who manages to get an interview with somebody called Manako Kaji. And again, apologies if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, who is a woman who is behind bars because she is purported to have murdered several lonely businessmen. And the whole court case has kind of become hugely popular in Japan, but not because of the crimes per se, but because that this woman happens to be overweight. And so when you kind of go into this novel, I was expecting, okay, I get it, right, cool, it's going to be like Silence of the Lambs. You've got the big bad, the killer, behind bars there, or behind glass, talking to this young reporter, and what's going to happen? Are they going to somehow be pulling strings and murders are going to be happening outside? Are they going to somehow manipulate this reporter in some way, shape or form? What you have, actually, as I've probably already hinted at, is this really interesting feminist discussion in which this figure of Kaji behind bars becomes this really interesting catalyst for the ways in which women's bodies are policed, essentially. And the title Butter becomes this really interesting motif, because like the core key staple in Japanese cuisine is soy sauce.
Mm-hmm.
Butter is seen as being quite fatter, well, it is, and has associations with more Western culture. And Kaji, this person behind bars, has lived a life of fine cooking, gourmet cooking, and Rika, this journalist, had an interest in cooking from a young age but fell out of love with it. And through Kaji is exploring what it is to enjoy good food, whilst also being aware of the fact that there is this kind of like self-policing that occurs where, like, to be beautiful for a woman, I say in Japan, but sadly it's an endemic in lots of cultures, is to be thin, to not overeat, to not overindulge, to not enjoy one's food, say, for example. So it becomes this really interesting conversation. And within the first few pages, I was like, okay, I want to try that recipe. And it's a recipe, a very simple one, where you make rice. You take butter out the fridge. It has to be cold butter. You put a knob of that butter on the rice, and then you pour soy sauce over it. And apparently, the combination of those flavors with the butter apparently is extraordinary. And that's just like a 3-ingredient dish. And if you love food, this is a real kind of love letter to food. The way in which the author, and this is Asako Yuzuki, with an amazing translation by Polly Barton, conveys the sensation and joy of eating food is amazing. It is a proper banquet. I don't think I've ever read a book where it feels like you're eating a meal at the same time, but you're hyper aware of the fact of kind of what this meal represents, as this reporter who's trying to understand how this criminal, this person, this figure, this magnetic figure works, by trying to learn more about their life, and through how their life is shaped by various different meals.
So how does that actually work structurally? Like how? Because it feels like there are two things that cause a bit of a contrivance there, in terms of there is this very sort of on-trend murder mystery aspect to it, which my wife's part of a book club, and it seems that if they're not reading fantasy smut, they're reading which is a big thing, and I did not realise it.
It's huge. I know people who are fantasy smut authors. It's huge.
Yeah, romantasy I think is probably the better genre for it.
Yes.
But it is. I was in a where was I? I was in a bookshop the other day, and there was very, very clear bookmarks that were just saying like, "Yeah, I'm reading fantasy smut," or something like that, or "This book is nothing but smut." Anyway, and so that's a big thing. But if they're not reading that, then they're reading murder mystery, crime novels. So it feels like that's very much like of the zeitgeist, and then there is this food element to it. Is it the case that, do you feel like the author wanted to write a book about food but didn't know how to make that essentially marketable, or are the two halves actually really complementary in that way?
Well, it comes from a real life convicted murderer, Kane Kojima, who in 2012 basically met businessmen on dating sites and murdered them, essentially. And the author was fascinated by the fact that the public seemed to be obsessed with the fact that this woman did not look like the typical femme fatale, because they were middle-aged and overweight. And the author was fascinated by that fact. So she wanted to do a book about that, really. So there is no kind of mystery, really. I mean, I'm a couple of chapters left from finishing it, so maybe this is the wrong time for me to talk about it. But I just wanted to talk about it, really, because... but, like, it isn't a murder mystery. If you want that, this isn't it.
Okay, all right, okay.
What it is instead is much more of a character study, where you find yourself at instances being fascinated by the character of Manako Kaji, like Rika does, but also being aware of those moments where it starts to get a bit too serious, and you're kind of thinking, okay, is Rika going to spot this? Because and also the people around Rika, I would say, her colleagues, her close friend, who is very much the typical symbol of her friend, is very much the typical image of what a quote-unquote typical woman should look like in this culture in terms of representing beauty, say, for example, which is very antithetical to what Kaji thinks. And there's a quote on the back of the book that Kaji says in her interview. She says, "There are two things I simply cannot tolerate, feminists and Marjorie." And it's fascinating because, like, Kaji is very much is independent, but also has these very strange views that women should be there to serve men, and that creates this really fascinating kind of conversation there that happens there. And then you've got Rika, who doesn't believe in that, but by the same time, at the beginning, at least at the beginning of the novel, say for example, they are part of that self-policing, and that becomes very apparent. Where as they're eating food and they're enjoying food and they're starting to feel comfortable, people around them starting to comment on their weight, and it creates that really interesting tension there. So it's a really interesting novel, genuinely. And I'm probably not doing. I must say, I'm probably not doing a service here in terms of my account of it here. Really,
Books are hard to talk about. Like I've read some amazing books over the past year, and have wanted to desperately talk about them on the show. And just like I've always thought about, like, how do you do it?
yeah,
Like, how do you? It's really difficult to talk about books in this medium without either ruining them or just sounding incredibly like, oh, you got to read it.
Yeah,
you got to
exactly.
read it because there's nothing, unlike board games or video games or films which have that visual element to it. There is nothing else to really talk about it besides the text that is on the page and how it makes you feel. And I think one of your gifts, Chris, is to do that. So, hands down to you. And I would like to talk more about books on the show. But I'm glad you brought this to us, because I've really wanted to read it too. At the weekend, Dan, I heard Chris say 4 little words that I've never heard him say before.
Okay, lay it on me.
He said, "Let's play that again."
yeah, and I stand by it.
So Chris has a quirk
Among many,
that whenever we play games, he never, and I mean never, even if he's enjoyed it and had a good time, will never play that game immediately again straight after.
Yeah.
So either we stop, we go home,
Yeah.
or we go and do another thing.
Yeah.
We play another game.
I'm not going to have dessert twice.
So usually when Chris
it's not
comes
a one
around,
and done forever, but it's
not a one and done forever,
Correct,
but
Dan.
it's never one straight after another. I'm a different mindset, as in terms of, wow, that game is good. Let's go again. Let's play a little bit more of it. So usually when Chris comes around, or I go to Chris's, usually we have a bit of a spread of games that or things that we want to do, because it's very unlikely that we're just going to sit and play the same game several times over and over again. So imagine my surprise after finishing our first game of Zenith, that as the moment it finished, Chris said, "Let's play that again." And even more, I won that game. And another quirk of Chris is,
Yep.
and you will be the first to admit
Agreed.
it, you generally get a little bit grumpy when you don't win the
Yeah.
games.
I definitely do. Back at you.
I'm better than I was.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no.
You still get a bit of a grump on if you don't win.
No. I agree with you there, Sam. Definitely.
See, I just never win, so I don't have that feeling to go with. So I'm always fine.
Just used to it. So, Zenith is a game by Gregory Girard and Matteo Roussel. And apologies if I'm butchering those names. But they became very well known last year for releasing, or at least 2 years ago now.
Yeah, 2 years.
2024, releasing Castle Combo, which was a superb little tableau combo building engine game. Came in a very, very small box. It's very, very good. I'd highly recommend it if you come across it in a shop and are looking for a nice, quick, and engaging game to play. And then along comes Zenith, which is nothing like that at all. It's a completely different beast. It is a two-player, head-to-head, tug-of-war game that does a lot of things that are very familiar to anyone who plays a lot of two-player games. Anyone who's been in the board game scene, really. It does a lot of things that are very, very similar. But boy, does it just feel Moorish.
It does it well.
Absolutely. Like I cannot. I've had a lot of time to reflect on our games, multiple of Zenith, and I still can't really put my finger on like how it really sings, but it just feels so confident and accomplished, even if it is just doing things that I've played in other games before. Like it's such a strange experience. I found my grammar and vocabulary really lacking when trying to describe the kind of game that Zenith is, or at least how it makes you feel as a player.
No, I agree, definitely. We've played a lot of these kinds of lane battler games, Sam, loads. And it's a classic thing for a two-player game. So, listener, a lane battler is that, in front of me, there are several lanes pointing towards Sam. In the center, there are tokens in each of these lanes. I'm trying to get those tokens to move a stage towards me. Sam is trying to move them towards him. It's that tug of war, and I'm having to choose which lane I want to go for to prioritize, or that might be determined for me by the cards that match the color of that lane in my hand, say, for example. And also, there is a tech tree, isn't there, Sam, to the side, that I could also choose to do instead to get certain perks. And again, if I focus on there, am I neglecting my lane? It's a little bit like, to some degree, that kind of three-part modular board of Gatsby, which we spoke about a few episodes ago.
Yes.
Isn't it really? Mm-hmm. Which is a delicious problem to have as a player.
I think I do wonder whether part of it is just... It's a bit like Ghosts of Tsushima, right? Like Ghosts of Tsushima is an open world video game that does a lot of stuff that all open world video games have done before. But it does it in a way that is just supremely classy, defined, directed. Everything has a purpose in that game. And I do wonder whether Zenith is similar, like how the tug of war mechanics works for the influence of the planets. It's not just about putting cards into lanes, and then that token comes towards you. It's to put cards into a lane, you have to be able to afford the card, but the price of each card is 1 credit cheaper for each card that is already in that lane. So suddenly, therefore, you're building up this small little engine and an economy for things that you can do in certain lanes. And there are certain cards that you really want to play but are too expensive. So do you find ways within the game to get more money, or do you find ways to add more cards into a lane in order to make yourself more sort of economically viable, and therefore put more expensive and more high-powered cards there in the lanes? And then along comes Chris and plays a card that takes cards out of your lanes. And then you lose everything that you're trying to build. And then there's other cards that allow you to get certain advantages by taking cards from your lanes, exiling them from them. So they're not only providing an economic value or a benefit to you, they're also providing some gameplay and mechanical values to you as well. There's a tech tree, but the tech tree can only be activated if you play certain cards of a certain class. They're either a robot, an animal, or a human, which means you've got to make those really tricky decisions about whether you're going to commit this card into a lane to do its benefit, get that ongoing reduction in costs, or you're going to use it to go up the tech tree, which will allow you to do other things that might be a bit more of a gamble, or might be a bit more of a stab in the dark, or something that you're just slowly building up time after time. And then, are you the leader, or you are not the leader? Because if you're the leader, your hand size goes up to 5. It could even go up to 6, which is a massive advantage. And there are some cards as well that give you certain benefits if you are the leader, but there's other cards that will give you benefits if you give the leader token to the other player to have. There is just not a single ounce of fat on this game at all.
Yeah.
The iconography does get a bit of getting used to, and I think this game's biggest failing is that for most of our first game, we had to really consult this quite clumsy and big icon sheet to kind of work it out. And even the icon sheet says that this is not an exhaustive list of all the icons. There is still a bit of here is an icon which looks a bit similar to what you are looking at. Try and work it out for yourself what it actually means. But in the same breath, what that variety lends itself is that, like, as me and Chris were doing, as we were playing multiple games, game after game after game, we were still discovering new cards. We were still discovering new icons and ways that the cards were interacting and manipulating the play. And part of that is down to the fact that cards have this multiple use and application. But also part of it is the fact that they've managed to squeeze as much out of the cards and how they interact and possibly how they can play with each other to such an extraordinary degree. Like I really don't think that I've been this bowled over by especially a 2-player game probably since Compile.
Okay, yeah.
In terms of how confident and assured that it feels. And again, Compile was one of those games where it was doing a lot of things from other games that we'd seen before, like Air, Land and Sea, but it just did it in a way which was absolutely superb and top shelf. And Zenith as well is just doing a lot of great stuff, but with a superb layer of confidence. Also, it looks great. I have to say, I'm a massive fan of the card art and the illustrations on there. Xavier Gunefe Durin, Guenifi, I think it's probably Xavier Guenifi Durin. Apologies if I am butchering another name, but your art is superb, and I really do like it.
And I'm really glad because I saw a lot of reviews for this last year, because this game came out last year, who said that were bowled over by it as a tug-of-war game. And I think that Splendor effect, as you say, there is just something really lovely knowing that every time I'm playing a card, it may not be useful now, but the next orange card I play will be one credit cheaper. And just that knowledge alone is just a delicious sensation. And the fact that every card is good. I don't think I ever encountered a card in my hand where I felt, nah, that's a duff card. Oh, that's an easy one for me to discard. I'll put that over there and it'll get me help up the tech tree, or that little bonus I can do to get the leadership token. There's not a bad card in this game, because at the very least, all of them will move a particular coloured planet towards you. I absolutely love this. I've not stopped thinking about it. I genuinely think that it's a game that all four of us would enjoy. And there is a team mode, isn't there, Sam? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, there is a team mode. Yeah. There's just lots of little things. Like, I think even the win conditions are really good. Like, I think in a lot of tug of war games that we played of this ilk, there are little things like, well, once you've won that thing is then gone. But the idea that once a planet or the influence over a planet is won and you've got control over it, just another planet just comes down and replaces it, and then you can just fight over that planet again. Like every time we played this, I never felt that feeling of frustration which I sometimes get with tug of war games like this, where Chris is doing really well and I'm not. Like, he's got all the planets are over there, like I've just got nothing. Like I just can't seem to change it or have any effect on the play at all. But there always seemed to be an answer in Zenith, and if there wasn't, I was just enjoying the combos and the mechanics and the ways everything interacted with him.
And Dan, like one thing you would really, really love is that actually what you've got is not just a hand of cards, it's essentially parts of an engine that you're building.
Yeah, it does seem to kind of play into that element of board games that I really love, where I sit there's nothing I like better than sitting there with like kind of building like a deck of cards. Not deck building. Should be clear, not deck building, but where you've got a deck and you put your kind of drawing cards, and I'll get cards and I'll be figuring it all out in my head as to what the cards I got, so I can just go boom, 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 and kind of win out of nowhere because I've just been planning it all. I was playing the other day. I was playing with my little boy and wife. We were playing Bears versus Babies. Kind of from the same company did like Exploding Kittens and stuff like that, which is all about building monsters and stuff. And I was just drawing loads of cards and I couldn't get a certain card I wanted. So I ended up with a massive deck. I was like, okay, well, what I'm going to do is very quickly create loads of big monsters very quickly. And then I'm going to go and win. I didn't. It all backfired. But there's nothing I like more than just sitting there building up that set of cards. And especially with this, trying to think 2, 3, 4 moves down the line, this is what I'll do, and at that point it'll all work. And that's why, like when we play Daybreak, I always go back to that kind of similar thing of understanding I can do that and then do that, which feeds into that, which feeds into that. And if I've got all that in my head, it's then just like knocking down that first domino and then boom, 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 I can play it all. And so this does sound, I mean, sometimes you say it looks fantastic, but this also just does sound like it does play into some of the things I like to do most with board games, some of the kind of the techniques that I love in board games.
So I've just looked up a list of Mario quotes.
Wonderful.
Just to see if we could.
Now, is this specifically the plumber, or is it just like, are we talking Mario Lopez of AC Slater fame? Are we talking kind of general Mario people?
No, this is Mario the game.
Thanks for clarifying, though, Dan. I think that was important.
Yeah,
for us
I think it's important to.
It's great.
Important to be clear.
Yeah.
I just and because I just want to see if we can really understand a bit more of the Mario philosophy.
Yeah. So I'm picturing quotes that would be on fridge magnets or on those inspirational posters one would see in an office space.
Yeah, or like on your auntie's Facebook page.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm also imagining Mario sat in an armchair, perhaps in like a dressing gown, and then kind of turning to going, "Oh, hi, I didn't see you there," and then going into his words of wisdom.
So we've got "It's a me," Mario.
Very existential.
Yeah.
Mario time. Let's go. Here we go.
I mean, we're on the third one, and we're already getting into repetition territory.
Yeah.
Mario Kart Wii, Yahoo, Mario Kart 7.
I mean, they're not great. I'm not going to lie. The quotes aren't. I don't think we're making a book out of these anytime soon.
There's Mario Kart 8. No, nothing like that. I mean, there's no. What was your?
I mean, you set this up, Sam, as if we were actually going to be getting some words of wisdom, and not just 8.
Oh, there is one. It's all you, baby.
Okay, I don't think Mario has ever said it's all you, baby.
Apparently, he has.
I mean, Dan, I found Sam's rendition of Mario a little bit more believable than Chris Pratt's.
Hey, he did a fine pretend Italian accent-esque thing. You can't call it Italian, but it's also not Italian.
I can't find what game Mario said. Oh, you. It's all you, baby, in it. But it's on fandom.com, so...
He said it.
Must be true.
Yes, I'm the winner. Spin, hammer, fire, jump. Boing.
You're just reading
lucky.
the manual now.
Mamma mia. Woo. Whoa. Oof. Do. Oh, no. Mamma mia. Ho, ho, ho. Wow, wow.
All right, Sam. I think we can call it. I think. I mean,
Nintendo.
I think we've let it go longer than it should have. I think we can call it. Mario is not quite the wordsmith you wanted him to be.
He is not the philosopher that we all aimed him to be. So should he be looking after our children? That's what we're going to discuss next time on the Staying In podcast. If you'd like to have your say on Mario and his abilities as a responsible adult, a father figure, if you will, then do send us an email at stayinginpod on Instagram. Stayinginpod@gmail.com is incidentally our email address. At stayinginpod is where you can find us on social media. We'd love to hear what you have to say about the plumber from... Is he actually Italian or is he New York Italian?
I think he's New York Italian.
Okay, fine.
They always come from like a New York city when they enter into the Mushroom Kingdom. That's where they're coming from usually.
Fair enough. Otherwise, you can interact with us in a number of different ways. You can see what we've got on the aforementioned Board Game Geek, where every board game that we ever speak about is on there, and links to the show where we spoke about it. So if you're interested in a game, like Zenith, for example, and would like to hear what we maybe had to say about it, then head on over to Board Game Geek, because we probably have done at some point. We've talked about a lot of games on this show. The same is true for Steam. We've got a curator page on there, so any video games that we've ever spoken about are all put there, as long with the show that we spoke about them on. It's quick and easy, and a great way to kind of work with us. It's nice. You can also feel and hear our presence on Spotify. Chris puts together and continues to do so some lovely Spotify playlists which capture the mood and music of all the stuff that we love that has a soundtrack to it. You can find out how to get access to those Spotify playlists by looking at the show notes of each episode. And other than that, it's it from us this time.
I think it is.
It is.
Take care.
Take care.